الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this beautiful weather, alhamdulillah. And we remind ourselves in every single day and in every single sujood to please keep those in your dua who are in need. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our prayer, accept our Jummah, and inshallah grant all of us forgiveness. The following individuals are in need of shifa, so please remember them. Sister Ruwabza, Brother Habibullah, Brother Turiali Ali, Brother Abdul Fatah, Brother Sayyid Masavi, Sister Marzia, Sister Rana Khan, Brother Huzail, Sister Aisha, Sister Dalara, Sister Maryam, Sister Zakia, Sister Fahima, Brother Zia Samadhi, Sister Sunya Kareem, Sister Sana Satar, Brother Mahil Lufti, Sister Sarzina, and our beloved young son Zain Yusuf. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant these individuals complete shifa, forgiveness, and ease to the families. Alhamdulillah, we have a couple tables outside today on your way out to pay attention to. One of them is the Insan Foundation. Once again, this is an organization that is doing work locally. They're having a service day in Pomona in commemoration on Martin Luther King Day this coming Monday. And once again, they're doing a campaign to help the homeless shelter services. Just a quick reflection. When it's raining, we all go to look which coats and blankets and what we're going to wear. These individuals don't have the basic necessities to even keep themselves dry, right? Let alone worry about a vehicle or driving or anything like that. So once again, please remember and reflect, inshallah. So on your way out, stop out and visit the Insan table to get more information on MLK Day as well as how you can assist them. ICIE end of the year survey. A lot of you still haven't filled it out. So please go ahead and do that. It's available. If you don't have it, we can send it to you now, but please check that out. ICIE is having their first annual Muslim forum for the Muslim Modern Forum. This will be consisting of individuals who are over the age of 18 and will be catered towards the atmosphere of young adults. Once again, young professionals, adults, anybody over the age of 18 is welcome, but the goal is to basically provide the tools and resources to be a successful Muslim living here in America. Once again, addressing topics of interest and things that we all need to know. So this is going to take place today. It's going to be right after Isha, so 7:30 Jama'ah, followed by the first session of this Muslim Modern Forum. Join Ansar Academy, they'll be having an event on February 17th at 10 a.m. It'll be on depression and suicide prevention, which is a very big issue not many communities are talking about. The session will be led by Brother Wali Hanif Azai, who is the Director of Mental Health at Access Services. So once again, sign up at the office if you want to attend. 2 classes for sisters on Surah Al-Baqarah and Khatm al-Quran. One is on Thursday at 10 o'clock, the other Tuesday at 10 a.m. Second khutbah will continue every Friday at 2:45. Fajr Club is still going on every Sunday. And once again, if you come after 12:30, please no reverse parking. Inshallah, it delays people and you put others at risk. And lastly and most importantly, alhamdulillah, our khatib for the week is going to be Sheikh Farhan Zubairi. And once again, as a reminder, they're here with IOK, which is an amazing organization. We had weekly lectures with Sheikh Ahmed Al-Kurdi, but they have a lot of programs our community can benefit from. Whether you're going for Umrah, you're going for Hajj, you want to attend weekly classes, you want to put your students in something to build their iman at a young age, they have a lot of services you can offer and benefit from. But before that, inshallah, without further ado, one of my favorite khatibs, Sheikh Farhan Zubairi.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Just going to ask everyone to please move forward first. Fill in the gaps in front of you. If you see a space in front of you, please fill it. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. All thanks and praise are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whom we thank, seek for help, and invoke for forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil within ourselves. He whom Allah guides will never be misled, and he whom Allah allows to be led astray will never find one to guide him. And we bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his last and final messenger. The word crisis is defined as a moment of intense difficulty, danger, or trouble. And based on this definition, the Muslim Ummah has been and is currently experiencing several different crises: economic, religious, political, social, and even theological. And according to a lot of my own teachers, a lot of my mentors, a lot of contemporary scholars, one of the greatest crises affecting the entire Ummah is what they call a crisis of knowledge. And this crisis is not simple. It's actually multifaceted. It has several different aspects to it. So inshallah, the purpose of today's khutbah is to discuss some of the factors, some of the aspects that are causing this crisis, and to hopefully start a conversation with ourselves, within our communities, on how we can actually deal with this and come up with practical solutions. So one of the major factors that aids or adds to this crisis is that there is a lack of a base level of literacy in Islamic studies, including but not limited to theology, creed, Quranic studies, hadith studies, fiqh, history, and seerah. So as a community, it's extremely important for us to be really honest and real with ourselves, that our understanding of our own faith, of our own teachings and religion and practices is actually very superficial and shallow. That we might think that we know a lot about Islam, but the reality is that we know very little. The vast majority of us, we have a perception of what Islam is. And this perception is based off of our own personal experiences in our own personal circumstances. And oftentimes these experiences, these circumstances, they are colored by the culture or flavor of Islam that we were brought up in. So for a lot of us, what we know about Islam is based on what we learned from our parents at home. And a lot of our parents came from a particular cultural background. Or perhaps it's what we learned at Jumu'ah khutbah. Maybe we went to a Sunday school or a weekend school. Perhaps what we know about Islam comes from the internet. It comes from Sheikh Google and Mufti YouTube. Right? Oftentimes our understanding of Islam, it's very ritualistic and formal. We understand the rituals, but we don't understand the substance behind it. And not to make anyone feel bad, but a question that all of us should think about is, how many of us actually understand the Quran in its native language? How many of us understand the history, the preservation, the compilation of the Quran? Its subject matter, its themes, how it's structured. How can we be committed to our faith? How can we be committed to our religion when we can't even meaningfully engage with the primary source of Islam, which is the Quran? So having this base level of literacy in Islam, it's an obligation upon each and every single one of us. The Prophet ﷺ said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. That seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every single Muslim. So just like praying 5 times a day is an obligation, just like fasting the month of Ramadan is an obligation, paying zakah if we meet the certain conditions, performing hajj if we're able to do so. Just as all of these acts are obligations, learning about our faith, learning about our religion and its teachings is also an obligation. And when discussing and explaining this hadith, the scholars mention that there are 4 branches of knowledge that each and every single one of us should be familiar with. The first is ilmu usul ad-din, knowledge of the principles of religion. And this is referring to theology or creed. What are the actual beliefs that make us Muslim? What are the beliefs that I hold that make me a believer? So as a Muslim, what do I believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is my belief regarding His existence and His oneness? What is my understanding of the essence and the divine names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What do I believe about His angels, His books, His messengers, the last day and life after death? What is my understanding of the divine decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So having a base level of literacy in our own theology is an obligation upon each and every single one of us. Because it is these beliefs that define us. It is these beliefs that actually bring us into the fold of Islam and make us believers. The second branch, they say, is ilmu ahkam al-sharia, knowledge of legal rulings. And more specifically, legal rulings related to acts of worship. We are supposed to have enough knowledge that allows us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly and properly. So for example, having detailed knowledge regarding purification and purity, whether it's physical or ritual, how to perform wudu correctly, what things nullify my wudu, how do I pray properly according to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how do I perform a fast correctly, how and when and how much zakah do I pay, how do I perform hajj. Having knowledge of each of these acts of worship is also an individual obligation. Because this is the knowledge that allows us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly and properly. The third branch, they say, is ilmul muharramat, having knowledge of those things that Allah has made impermissible. Because part of worshiping Allah, part of ibadah, is staying away from those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made unlawful. And the only way to do so is to actually learn about those things. What are the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself mentions in the Quran that we are not allowed to engage in? What are the things that the Prophet ﷺ told us to stay away from? And the fourth is ilmu ahkam al-mu'amala wal-mu'ashara, right? Legal rulings or knowledge regarding social dealings and financial dealings. So every single one of us as human beings, we play several different roles in life. I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a neighbor, I'm a classmate, I'm a coworker. In each of these roles, what are my responsibilities towards others? What are the rights that I have upon others as well? So having that knowledge is also an obligation. In terms of business and livelihood, what type of business I engage in, how I earn my wealth, and recognizing if it's something permissible or not, that's also an obligation. So now everyone doesn't need to become a scholar, but all of us need to have enough knowledge to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly with understanding. And having that base minimum level is an obligation upon each and every single one of us. And that's something that all of us need to work towards. We have to spend time, we have to spend effort, we have to expend resources in acquiring this base level of literacy within our own faith, within our own religion. The second aspect that I want to highlight is that for several years, especially here in America, there has been an absence of a structured and formal system of study for Muslims in America. You know, I grew up and I spent most of my youth here in Southern California. And I went to high school in the late 90s. I graduated in 2001. That makes me feel really old. But when I was growing up here in high school, we did not have access to structured, formal programs of Islamic education. As a matter of fact, when I was growing up, I didn't even have access to qualified trained scholars. Most of the masajid till today don't have a designated religious director or a designated religious resident scholar who is there to serve the community. So as I was growing up, there was an absence of these resources. We didn't know and we didn't understand how we're supposed to study our religion and how we're supposed to increase our knowledge of faith. Now, alhamdulillah, you know, for the past several years, there's been a lot of advancement in this field, especially here in California. That there's all of these amazing programs and institutions. Every masjid has some class that they're offering that all of us should take advantage of. These are huge blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's our responsibility to participate in them and to actually value them, to understand how important they are to preserving our faith and preserving our identity. So having a structured and formal method of learning our religion. The third factor, and this is something unfortunate, is that there has always been this negative sentiment, a negative attitude towards scholarship and traditionally trained scholars. And this is especially true for our immigrant generation that came from countries that were colonized. Right? One of the negative effects of colonization is that they created this negative perception towards scholarship and anything that had to do with Islam. So for example, if you are from a Desi background, if you come from Pakistan or India, or your parents migrated from Pakistan and India, there's always this negative attitude and this negative tone towards Maulwis or Maulanas, that they're looked at as being backwards. Somehow they're primitive, they're uneducated, they don't understand what's going on in the world, they can't relate to us and they don't know what's going on. And having this type of attitude towards scholars and scholarship and religious leadership is toxic. This is something that is destructive to our communities. And the reason for that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself, He elevates the people of knowledge. يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself tells us that those who have faith and iman, right? Those who have faith and who have been given knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates their rank. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives them honor and dignity and respect, not only in this life but in the life to come. And not because of any virtue of the individual themselves, but because of the iman that they have and because of the knowledge that they possess. The Prophet ﷺ called the people of knowledge his heirs. Al-ulama hum warathatul anbiya. That the scholars, the people of knowledge, the people of understanding, they are the heirs of the prophets. وَإِنَّ الْأَنْبِيَا لَمْ يُوَرِّثُوا دِينَارًا وَلَا دِرْهَمًا. And the prophets, they didn't leave behind gold and silver coins. وَلَكِنْ وَرَّثُوا الْعِلْمِ. But they left behind knowledge. فَمَنْ أَخَذَهُ أَخَذَ بِحَظٍ وَافِرٍ. So whoever takes this has taken a great proportion. So this is something that even myself till today I experience. That people have this negative attitude that, oh, you weren't able to do anything else, so you became like a Maulwi. And this is a really negative attitude that needs to change in our communities if we want to start recognizing the value of knowledge. The fourth and perhaps most critical aspect of this crisis is that there's a huge clash between two very different and opposing worldviews. There is a worldview that's rooted in revelation, that's rooted in the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, as opposed to a worldview that's rooted in the modern Western world, that's built upon the foundations of secularism and humanism and scientism and liberalism. And these two worldviews, they are at completely different ends of the spectrum. They are at odds. And whether we like to admit it or not, the environment that we grow up in and the environment that we live in, it has a huge effect upon our perspective. It has a huge effect upon how we view things, how we understand things, how we process information, and it even has an effect upon how we behave and speak. So we live in a society where we have been cultured through the public education system or the private education system of high schools and universities and colleges. And knowingly or unknowingly, a lot of us have adopted a worldview or a value system or a way of life that's actually built upon liberalism, that's built upon secularism, that doesn't recognize the divine, that considers religion to be backwards and primitive and perhaps even irrational. So as an example, when we think about the concepts of justice or equality and fairness and mercy and kindness, we look at these concepts from a very liberal perspective. And then when we apply that liberal perspective to certain verses of the Quran and certain statements of the Prophet ﷺ, all of a sudden we find them to be quote unquote problematic. That we can't reconcile our understanding of justice and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran. That we can't reconcile between our understanding of equality and what the Prophet ﷺ is saying about a particular issue or a particular matter. And this is something that is a flawed way of approaching the Quran or the Sunnah, because our worldview is supposed to be rooted in the Quran and Sunnah itself. That whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares to be just, whatever He declares to be fair and equitable, whatever He declares to be mercy, that's exactly what it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate decider of what these realities and what these concepts truly are. So it's really important for us to recognize that there are these two opposing worldviews. And whether we like to admit it or not, the environment that we live in and the culture we live in has influenced the way we view the world. So in order to change that, right, in order to change the shade through which we are seeing the world, it's important to go back to that first point and actually learn what our worldview is. That what do we believe about reality? What do we believe about truth, about the existence of Allah? What do we believe about prophets and messengers and revelation? Right? What do we believe are the sources of knowledge and other things? Right? This all goes back again to seeking knowledge. Another aspect that has led to this crisis is that there is a huge imbalance of resources towards academic education as opposed to religious education. And this is a point that I've discussed a lot of times before with several people, is that if you take the average high school student in America, they spend about 8 hours every single day at their high school. Right? 8 hours every single day at high school. And if they're extremely motivated, they want to get to the best universities, the best colleges, they want to go to med school or law school or whatever else it may be, then they have to spend at least a minimum of 3 to 4 hours studying and reviewing every single day. That's already 12, 13 hours of the day that are gone. Then add on to that some extracurricular activities, whether it's sports or they're part of some club or organization, they're doing volunteer work outside, or even the time they spend hanging out with their friends or at the park, at the gym, playing video games, whatever it may be. The vast majority of the day is spent in an environment that again has these heavy influences of certain philosophies and ideologies. And compare that to the amount of time where they are being exposed to religious education. The vast majority of our children only spend about 2 to 3 hours a week learning about Islam at a Sunday school. That is a huge imbalance. That the entire week, 5 days a week, the vast majority of their time is being spent under the influence of all of these different factors. And then we only put them in a Sunday school or weekend school to learn about their faith for 2 to 3 hours a week. This is a huge imbalance, and this is something that has to change. That we have to recognize how important it is to instill faith and knowledge within our children. That there should be an equilibrium, there should be a balance. If my children are spending 8, 9, 10 hours a day in a particular environment, the same amount of time should be spent educating them about their faith, about their morals, about their character, increasing their love for Allah, increasing their love for the Prophet ﷺ. But that can only happen if we recognize the value of that. Because most of us, we recognize the value of academic education. We know that if they get a degree, they can get a good job and they can live a comfortable life. But when it comes to religion, we don't see the value because the immediate, consequences or the immediate results aren't in front of our eyes. The results are things we're going to see in the akhirah and the hereafter. So we have to bring back this balance in terms of education, in terms of time and resources spent on both things. And the last point, which is somewhat related, is that there aren't enough after-school programs for our children. Right? Especially if our children are spending so much time at school every single day, they need somewhat of a detox. They need to be in an environment, in a safe space, where people share the same faith and same beliefs and same morals and same values. There have to be vibrant after-school programs that instill the love of Allah and the love of the Prophet ﷺ within our children. So if we were to do a survey of all the major masajid in Southern California, the vast majority of them either don't have an after-school program, or if they do, it's focused only on learning how to recite and memorize Quran, which is something that's done as a ritual, something that's done as a formal practice. But the substance behind it is missing. So it's really important for all of us to come together and think, how can we change this? Right? How can we make people recognize the value of Islamic education? And how can we make our centers cater towards our children? So these are some, thoughts that come to mind when talking about this crisis of knowledge. And in the second portion, I'll explain about why this is so important and why we need to have this conversation, and inshallah come up with some real and practical solutions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us all amongst those who recognize the value of learning. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our faith and to keep us steadfast upon it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. All thanks and praise are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may His peace and blessings be upon His last and final messenger, His family, His companions, and those who follow them until the end of times. I'm going to ask everyone to move forward one more time. Fill in the gaps in front of you, fill in the spaces in front of you, make room for the people that are in the back. One of the greatest gifts, or actually the greatest gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to each and every single one of us is our iman. It is our faith. It's the fact that we believe in the existence and oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the fact that we believe in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This gift is something that is priceless. It's invaluable. It's something that it is so important for us to recognize how valuable it truly is. And whenever we are given a gift by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's our responsibility to express gratitude for that gift. And gratitude in Islam is not simply lip service. It's not only saying Alhamdulillah or doing certain rituals and certain formal acts. Gratitude in Islam is first and foremost recognizing the value of the gift and then using that gift properly. And part of doing so is ensuring that we are protecting our own faith, our own iman, and we are also protecting the faith and iman of our children. That we are nurturing it, we're providing it with nutrients, we're allowing it to grow and flourish within our hearts. And the only way and the most effective way of doing so is through seeking knowledge. It is by tackling this crisis of knowledge that exists within our communities. That if we want faith and iman to survive in the next generation and the following generations, we have to make sure that our children are extremely firm in their faith. They're firm in their belief, they're firm in their identity. And that starts off by us being firm in our belief and identity in the first place. Because if we don't, then with each successive generation, we are going to see a weakening of faith, and then a further weakening of faith, and then a further weakening of faith. And this isn't just some like hypothesis or a theory. This is something that people across the globe have actually seen happening. That there are certain communities, for example, in Latin America, where immigrant communities from either the Arab world or the Muslim world came and settled perhaps 3 or 4 generations ago. Either they came as refugees or they came to do business, whatever it may be. So that first generation, they were still Muslim. They had their Muslim identity, they would pray, they would fast. But again, they didn't have this system of education and the environment. And they weren't passing that on necessarily to their children. So their children perhaps lost some of that identity. And then 2, 3 generations down the line, Islam is completely lost. Where you will go and you will meet certain individuals that have Muslim names still. Their names are Umar and Fatima and Abdullah and whatever it may be. And if you ask them if they're Muslim, they say, no, we're not Muslim. But you know what? Our grandparents used to be. Or our great-grandparents used to be. We used to see them when we were children praying, but we're not Muslim anymore. And we can see the same trend sort of starting to happen here as well. But we are at a juncture where we can stop that, we can prevent that. Because we have, mashallah, a lot of institutions, we have a lot of organizations, we have a lot of resources, we have the numbers, we have the talent. But it's our responsibility to use all of these things appropriately in order to ensure and instill faith within the hearts of our children. And all of it goes back to building a solid foundation that's based upon knowledge, that's based upon understanding our faith, its teachings, and its practices. And that is why I encourage every single person here to dedicate some time of the week to learning more about Islam. Learning something that will bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that will increase your love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I mentioned, mashallah, most of the masajid across Southern California have weekly programs that have durus in the masjid, lectures on tafsir of the Quran, lectures on seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's lessons of fiqh. Right? Our organization, IOK, the whole purpose of it is to educate. Our entire foundation is built on ta'aleem and ta'allum, basically learning and teaching. We offer a number of different courses for this particular purpose. Right? One of the objectives and the visions we have behind what we do is to increase literacy of Islam within the Muslim community. That there's this base level of knowledge that every single one of us should have, which the Prophet ﷺ highlighted by saying seeking knowledge is an obligation upon each and every single one of you. So I encourage everyone to dedicate some time, whether it's once a week, twice a week, whatever it may be. Not only focus on yourself, but especially your children. Spend some time with them more than just Sunday school. You know, just to be honest and real, Sunday school is not enough. It's a great initiative, it's great, it's awesome. They do awesome work. But it is not enough to train our children and nurture iman within their hearts properly. So I encourage everyone to start thinking about this and to actually start a discussion and come up with real practical ways of dealing with this crisis. And it all goes back to our own volition, our own encouragement, our own enthusiasm, and our own understanding of how valuable this truly is. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, to help us tackle this difficulty. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who recognize the value of seeking Islamic education. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give all of us the tawfiq, the ability to spend time weekly learning about Islam, learning about Iman, increasing our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increasing our relationship with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant all of us beneficial knowledge. Knowledge that is not simply information, but that actually translates into action as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to preserve our faith and our identity. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to preserve the faith and identity of our children and the generations that follow. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help all of the Muslims that are struggling throughout the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease their pain and suffering. May He give them patience and steadfastness. May He grant them victory. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help the Muslims in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Central Africa, in Palestine, in Kashmir, in Burma, in China, the Uyghurs, they're going through a very difficult time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them patience and steadfastness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure all of those who are ill. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant paradise to anyone who has passed away. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them the highest ranks in Jannah, to give patience to their families. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to keep us steadfast on our faith, to beautify it within our hearts, and to accept all of our good deeds. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أصلح أحوال المسلمين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون أقم الصلاة
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
استووا اعتدلوا تراصوا make sure the lines are straight, no gaps in between. Keep filling in the front rows first. I guess there's some space still on the left-hand side of the hall. Keep moving forward. Allahu Akbar. تبارك اسمك. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر Assalamu alaikum. As Brother Nadeem was mentioning, I am with the Institute of Knowledge, and alhamdulillah we have a lot of great classes for adults that we offer, and we're actually starting a new class tomorrow taught by Sheikh Jibril Spate, who's new to Southern California, the history of Islam in America, which is a really interesting class that explores the different factors and the different organizations and the different things that kind of influenced the community and brought us to where we are today. So if you want more information, please visit our table outside. I'll be there later in. Our dear respected Hafidh Anas is there. If you have any questions, you can ask them, inshallah.